ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामी विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादी कम करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत्। हरे कृष्ण। So we are about to enter the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is broadly divided into 3 categories: the first 6, middle 6, and the last 6 chapters. The first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita focus mainly on the Karma Yoga, because it begins with the knowledge of the soul, because without understanding ourselves or the soul, there is no question of talking about any kind of yoga, because yoga is in relation, the soul's relationship with the Supreme Truth. So the Lord begins with this, and then he focuses most of the subsequent chapters, 3rd onwards, predominantly focused on Karma Yoga, with the specific focus of how one can act in such a way that one becomes free from all karmic reactions. And the Lord spends a significant amount of time trying to make Arjuna understand that freedom from karmic reactions is not equal to not performing activity, but rather it is about performing activity with a spiritual consciousness rather than a material consciousness. So we discussed that in the 5th chapter, because in the 5th chapter the Lord focused so conclusively on establishing this principle. And if you remember, towards the end of the 5th chapter, in the second last verse, 5.28, the Lord hinted to Arjuna that the detachment that I'm talking about and the focus on me, the Supreme that I'm talking about, can also be achieved by a mechanical process which involves control of the breath, control of the mind, control of the senses. The Lord is hinting at the mechanical process of Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. And in this upcoming chapter, chapter 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga, the Lord is going to elaborate what he hinted at in the 5th chapter. He's going to elaborate the process of Dhyana Yoga. The Lord has already established two key points across the first 5 chapters. And the Lord is going to very beautifully summarize them in the first 2 verses of the 6th chapter. So let's go through that. It's very beautiful. The Lord beautifully summarizes. And these are some of the things which we should, even though we may not remember and understand all the arguments that the Lord has made, there are some things which was stuck in the mind. and the intelligence very clearly. Those are the siddhantas. They are the philosophical conclusions, the spiritual truths. For example, I am not the body, I am a soul. This must be very fixed. Second, as a soul, I am spiritual in nature and I am part and parcel of the supreme absolute truth. This must be very fixed in our consciousness. Like that, there are many truths which are explained across the Bhagavad Gita. So the Lord begins the sixth chapter by summarizing some points, and we will discuss them. Today we'll probably cover around 9 or 10 verses from the Dhyana Yoga chapter. If we get more time, we can do more, but let's see how it goes. I'm trying to focus on the first 10 because there are some nice, interesting lessons there, and I feel we may spend most of our time in that discussion. So in the first verse, let me recite. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashritah Karma Phalam Karyam. Anashrita Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Yah Sasanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriyah. So the Lord is telling Arjun, in bracket, I hope you have understood by now, that who is actually free from karmic reactions? It is not the person who doesn't work, who doesn't light any fire. Doesn't light any fire means, olden times, lighting a fire means cooking, means you do activities, you earn money, you buy things, and then you cook. So this whole process is, in very simple words, called as lighting a fire. It is not a person who doesn't do anything, who has no duty or doesn't light any fire. That person is one who's free from karma, is he who's not attached to his work and who simply performs his prescribed duties with detachment. He is a true yogi. Sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. He is a true renunciate. Not renouncing the work, but renouncing the desire to enjoy the fruits of the work. The Lord again beautifully summarizes. Freedom is not a consequence of stopping work. Freedom is a consequence of being detached from the outcome of the work. Or in other words, to not perform work with the desire for material enjoyment. Anashritah karma phalam karyam karma karoti yah sasannyasi cha yogi cha. That person is a sannyasi and that person is a yogi. Now, very beautiful, Krishna is saying, he's using two words, sannyasi and yogi. Now, if you take the meaning of these two words, sannyasi means samyak nyas, one who has completely ceased material activities. And who's a yogi? He who is properly connected to the Supreme Lord is a yogi. Sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. So on one hand, he's saying that person is truly renounced and that person is truly connected. So renounced and connected seem to be the opposite directions. But Krishna is referring to the same person as both detached and attached. Yes, you understand? Sannyasi means detachment, right? Renounced. And yogi means attached. Right? Yoga means huge, to be connected, to be attached. Attached to whom? Attached to the Supreme. So one is sannyasi's detachment from matter. Yogi is attachment to Krishna. And now Krishna clarifies again. The next verse says very beautifully. He says, Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam viddhi pandava nahi asanyasta sankalpo Yogir bhavati kaschana. Arjun, I hope you have understood by now that what I am describing as a true sannyasi is the same as a true yogi. Even though these two descriptions seem to be going in opposite directions, I hope you have understood by now that these are two sides of the same coin of spiritual advancement. Detachment from matter, attachment to Krishna. Because those people who think that they can become attached to God but at the same time continue enjoying materialistic things simultaneously are simply cheating themselves. Nahi asanyasta sankalpo yogir bhavati kaschana. One who refuses to give up his tendency to enjoy in a materialistic way, who tries to find pleasure in matter and material enjoyment and makes that the focus of his life, he can never be a yogi. So these two always go together. The sannyasi and the yogi. Again, sannyasi is not about somebody who's leaving his house wearing saffron and going in the forest. Arjuna, I just explained. This is not about he who lights no fire. It is he who's detached from the fruits of activities. So, Arjuna, I hope it is clear to you by now that detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna, both are essential elements of spiritual progress. And true detachment from matter cannot arise without attachment to Krishna. And true attachment to Krishna cannot arise unless one is sufficiently detached from matter. Yes. And that is why all genuine spiritual practices involve both these aspects as parallel tracks for spiritual advancement. One is teaching how to avoid certain materialistic engagements which drag one's consciousness away from God. And there are other set of practices, the sadhana, which encourages through regular practice a process by which one develops attachment to the Lord through the cultivation of a proper relationship. So ultimately, Arjun, the bottom line is true spiritual advancement means renouncing the desire for materialistic enjoyment. And I've already explained this to you, Arjun, earlier that this desire for material enjoyment, even though it seems so difficult to give up, it is easily possible for those who have developed a positive attraction to the Lord. Yes, correct? Huh? Like a small child, right? Yeah, a small child. A small child sometimes grabs something. Okay? So the mother sees that he has grabbed some unclean object and putting that unclean object in the mouth. Small baby child, barely speak. Small children, they are so much on the consciousness of the Annamaya Kosh that they try to experience the whole world through the sense of taste by eating. Have you noticed this? Very young children, how do they perceive the world? They are not even so much focused on sight or hearing. The focus of very young children is on the sense of taste. They want to eat anything they see, anything they find interesting, they pick it up and put it first in their mouth. So imagine a small child is picked up some piece of wood or something like that and put it into his mouth. And the mother is trying to take it away, but he's refusing to give it back. So what does the mother do? A smart mother, instead of this, will give him some very nice, maybe a nice, beautiful banana, ripe banana. and bring it in front of him. And when the child smells that banana, ah, it smells so much nicer. Immediately grabs from the mother's hand the banana. And as he grabs that from one hand, his grip on that piece of wood automatically becomes loose. Very quickly, without the child even realizing, the mother picks up that piece of wood or whatever else undesirable item that was in the hand of the child away. The child even totally forgets about that and is busy sucking on the banana and enjoying. Ah, this is so much better. Isn't it? What does this mean? This means that when the conditioned soul is so attached to materialistic things, to tell him don't do this, don't do that is difficult. It's difficult to snatch it out of his hand. But when the same living entity is given a higher substitute, and when this individual tastes that higher substitute, it becomes so much easier to give up something which is lower. And that is why we always emphasize, along with detachment, attachment to the Lord, cultivation of a positive relationship to God is very, very important. Developing the taste for Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archana, Prasad, Seva, all these aspects are important because the pleasure that they give will help us to naturally develop a sense of detachment or renunciation from materialistic pursuits. So Krishna is emphasizing to Arjun that you should understand that true spiritual life means understanding that I am not material and I should not hanker for material things, but I am spiritual and I must be reconnected to my spiritual source. The Jiva, the living entity, the Atma, is actually the Tatastha Shakti of the Lord. The Lord has diverse energies. The Lord has material energy. The Lord has spiritual energy. Material energy is Durga or Maya, Mahamaya. Spiritual energy is Radha, Lakshmi, or Yoga Maya, the spiritual world. And in between these two energies is a third energy, which is known as the Tatastha Shakti, on the tat, on the bank, between the two. And this Tatastha Shakti is what the Jiva is comprised of, the Jivas, the living entities. These Jivas, these living entities, even though spiritual in nature, are so tiny that they can also be swept away and ensnared by the material energy, even though technically they are higher in nature. Because the material energy is so vast and powerful, being under the direct control of the Lord. The Jiva, when it becomes forgetful of its true nature as part and parcel of the Lord, can get ensnared by a false promise of material enjoyment. But all that the Jiva has to do is re-establish its pure consciousness. Give up this selfish mentality of enjoyment of the material senses. Understand oneself to be spiritual and cultivate a development of the spiritual senses by serving the Supreme Lord. That is why bhakti is also defined by Narad Muni as Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That bhakti means using our senses in the service of the Lord of the senses. Currently, we have material senses, but the soul also has spiritual senses. And when those spiritual senses are engaged in the service of the Lord of the senses, Govinda. What is the meaning of the word Govinda? Go means, go has many meanings. Go means cow, go means land, go also refers to the senses. Go vindati iti govinda. Vinda means to give pleasure. The Lord of all living entities, when we connect with Him through our spiritual senses are nourished. And His Rishikesha, Rishika again means senses, and Isha means Lord. The Lord is the Lord of our senses, and that is why He's known as Rishikesha. Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam. Serving Rishikesh with the senses, Rishika, is bhakti. That is why ultimately to develop true detachment from matter, it is not sufficient simply to perform karma yoga or jnana yoga, because they may give you some level of detachment, but they will not give you the positive experience of spiritual pleasure, of connection of the spiritual senses of the soul with those of the Lord. And unless one experiences the higher pleasure of that connection, it is going to be very difficult for the soul to remain detached from matter and to permanently remain in a state of spiritual consciousness. That is why the recommended practice for all of us is practice engaging our material senses in the service of the Lord of the senses. Then, because our material senses are covering our spiritual senses, and just like a glove is covering the hand, eventually the spiritual senses will become revived and they will experience a spiritual pleasure. And then they will lose, like that small child who gave up the nonsense and accepted a nice, ripe fruit. Similarly, the senses will gradually become detached from material senses. And that is exactly what Maharaj Ambarish did. How did the great Maharaj Ambarish was a great king? He was a big politician, very successful king. How did he develop detachment? Savai manah Krishna padaravinda yoho vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane. Bhagavad says he developed such great taste and devotion because all his senses were busy engaged in the service of the Lord. He used his mouth to glorify the Lord, his eyes to see the deities of the Lord, his tongue to taste the prasad of the Lord, his nose to smell the beautiful flowers and tulsi offered to the Lord, and so on and so forth. His senses were so spiritualized in connection with the Lord that they lost all attraction to matter. So that is the process of sadhana. So Krishna says, this is very important principle, Arjun. Please understand this. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna must be simultaneously cultivated, and you will understand whether you are making true advancement when you can see that you are becoming detached from material enjoyment. Because without renouncing materialistic enjoyment, one cannot become a yogi. Yeah. Now again, to be clear, when Krishna is saying freedom from materialistic enjoyment, this doesn't mean renunciation or going to the forest. Again, I'm mentioning this very explicitly. One can still stay in a house, one can still do a job, still have a family, still, if he wants, eat nice, tasty food. But one is not focused on sense enjoyment as the goal of life. If there are some comforts available, fine, one accepts it in the spirit of the blessings of the Lord. And whatever way he can engage, whatever he has, he tries to engage in the service of the Lord. Whatever food he cooks, he offers it to the Lord. The house, he worships the Lord in the house. The family members, they come together and do Krishna Katha. All these things are done. But the main goal of life always remains spiritual advancement and development of devotion to the Lord. The life is devoted to God realization and self-realization. So Krishna says, this is important to understand. And that is why Krishna recommends in the third verse of the sixth chapter, Krishna says, please understand with respect to renunciation. He says, Arurukshor muner yogam karma karanamuchyate yogarudasya tasyaiva shamah karanamuchyate. Arjun, be clear that in the beginning stages of yoga, when the soul is not very advanced, oftentimes the soul is still advised to continue to do his prescribed duties with great enthusiasm, but with a spirit of detachment. And only at a very advanced stage of spiritual consciousness, when one is practically liberated from material association and free from all material desire, then one can adopt renunciation of the activity itself as a means for advancement. But that is at a very advanced level, not for you, not for us either. The path for 99.9% of the population is perform your prescribed duty, but do it as a service to Krishna and not motivated by material enjoyment. So Krishna says that in the eightfold path, of course, here he talks in context of the eightfold path, but I'm giving a more broader explanation. Krishna says for the Ashtanga Yogi also, in the initial stages, Aruruksho means who has just begun. For him, he should continue to do his prescribed duties with a detached spirit. But only when he becomes firmly established in meditation and samadhi, at that stage, he can think of giving up all activities. Because if you remember, we have been discussing this right from third, fourth chapter. Krishna says, if you artificially try to suppress your material desires without purifying your heart properly through a proper spiritual process, then you will simply end up being frustrated. And one day, very likely, it will become like your mind and heart will become like a pressure cooker. The pressure builds. You're just trying to control yourself, and one day the pressure will explode, and the jiva will go berserk in material enjoyment. Correct? Why do you think there are so many disasters in so many sannyasis and swamis in Kali Yuga? Those who do not follow this formula that Krishna gives, they artificially place themselves on a pedestal where they are not, by pretending they are free from material desire, but they are not. This is what eventually happens. And that's why Krishna says, do not imitate the duty of somebody else. Act according to your own level of advancement. One doesn't become advanced simply by wearing a saffron cloth and leaving home. If it was so easy, we would have all done it. The saffron cloth is a reflection of the saffron color in the heart. Only when your heart has saffron color, then you can put on saffron color outside. What does saffron color mean? Saffron color means true spirit of selfless sacrifice, where one has become free from all desire for self-enjoyment, but dedicates his life in sacrifice for the service of the Lord and service of the society. So inside color is more important. And that's why Krishna says, it's not about stopping work. You focus on developing the right color in your heart. While you are situated in home, act in a selfless way. Purify your heart. That is true yoga, not simply running away and not lighting any fire or not performing your Yadahi nendriyartheshu na karmashu anusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhastadochyate. When a person actually becomes advanced in yoga, how do we understand? He renounces all material desires. Because when the soul becomes actually advanced, he is experiencing such spiritual pleasure in his connection with the Lord that he doesn't have to tell himself, oh, I don't have to do this. Huh? This is not good. Huh? I should not enjoy this. I should not do this. No. He so naturally, he has given up all material desires, not by force, because he's developing such a higher taste. Correct? Like the child who got the banana, after that you give him back that wooden stick, he will say, no, keep it away, I'm eating the banana. Not interested, not interested, not interested. Like Krishna says in the second chapter, Raso varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Param drishtva, having experienced the param, nivartate, becomes detached from material enjoyment. Such an advanced soul doesn't work to get any material benefit, nor is he interested in simply activities for sense enjoyment. Why he is not interested in activities for sense enjoyment? Krishna already explained that in the 5th chapter. What did Krishna explain? He already knows that if he is simply tempted by desire for material enjoyment gives this much pleasure and this much trouble. So an advanced soul has already come to that realization that this is not a good deal. Correct? If a shopkeeper realizes he's buying at this cost price and selling at this selling price, will he continue to do that business? No, of course not. Similarly, an advanced spiritualist comes to that realization, what is little happiness? I'm subjecting myself to so much suffering and ultimately repeated birth, old age, disease, and death in this material world. Let me rather realize my true spiritual nature and engage in devotional service of the Lord. Dukkha yonaya evate adyavanta kaunteyannateshu ramate Buddha. Those who have become Buddha, intelligent, ye hi samsparshajab hoga. Those pleasures which come by the contact of the senses with the sense objects, they naturally become detached because they understand. Dukkha yonaya evate. This attraction. It's just tempting me to enjoy, but as soon as I try to enjoy, suffering will grab me. Now, many of you may think, what Prabhuji is speaking? Nonsense. So, why we are not understanding this? Because we are not sufficiently spiritually advanced. And that's exactly what Krishna is saying in this verse. When you become sufficiently spiritually advanced, you will understand this point. And then you will give up materialistic activity. Yeah. So, if we are not already realizing it, then we should understand we still have some work to do. And in the meanwhile, until we reach there, one must still do one's prescribed duties with detachment and try to dedicate the effort as well as the fruits to the Lord as far as possible. Even if you cannot do fully, doesn't matter. At least start a little bit. You can start 1% for the Lord, 99% for ourselves. Better than 100 and 0, isn't it? Then slowly go to 98% and 2% for the Lord. Nobody is asking you to flip overnight, right? In fact, Arjuna wanted to flip. Krishna, I am renouncing everything, I am going, I am becoming spiritual. Krishna says, hey, what are you doing? You will fail miserably if you do this. Don't. I am telling you upfront, Arjuna, if you try this, you will come running back onto the battlefield because that is your nature. Just like a mother, right? Sometimes, the child likes too smart. Then the mother tells the child, really? You think you can do like this? Let me see. You go. And after 10 minutes, the child will come back to the mother. No, mommy. No. You are right. I cannot do this. It's too difficult for me to do this. So we are spiritual children. We need the guidance of the Lord coming through the spiritual master and our spiritual teachers to understand what our position is and based on our position, how we should act. So at a very advanced level, one is able to give up all materialistic activities. But in the meanwhile, one should slowly progress by adopting the principles of detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna simultaneously, gradually, so that both the detachment will increase over time and attachment to Krishna will also increase over time. And that is the process of sadhana bhakti. And Krishna says central to this whole process of spiritual advancement, Arjun, is the mind. He says, Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva yatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanah. Arjun, to deliver yourself from your predicament of materialistic entrapment, you have to use your mind. Your mind is your instrument. So you must elevate yourself with the help of your mind. Don't let your mind degrade you and take you deeper into materialistic entrenchment. Please understand, Arjun, the mind can be your friend, the mind can also be your enemy. But the problem is you cannot run away from the mind. Correct? Can we run away from the mind? No. The mind is our constant companion. Yes, you cannot run away. And the mind is the instrument to be used to both elevate, or if you don't use it for elevation, it will lead to degradation. Either way, it is still the mind. So Arjun says, Krishna tells to Arjun, Arjun, please recognize this. This whole process of yoga is about controlling the mind ultimately, because both aspects, detachment from matter is also about the mind, attachment to Krishna is also about the mind. One direction takes you upward, the other direction takes you downward. So the mind you have to deal with, and the mind can either be your friend or be an enemy. Very beautifully in the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, there is a beautiful verse. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho bandhaya vishaya sango mukchai nirvishayam manaha. Mana, mind, is manushyanam, is the karan of bandhan and moksha, both. If you say, oh, I am very degraded, I am very attached, what is the reason? The mind. Oh, I have become very elevated. What is the reason? Because you use the mind in the right way. In either way, you use the mind. When the mind is detached, it leads to elevation, detached from matter. And when the mind is attached to materialistic attachments, it leads to degradation. Detachment leads to elevation, attachment to matter leads to degradation. So Krishna says in 6.6, Bandhur Atmanatmanas, sorry, Bandhuratma namatmastasya yenatmaivatmanajitah anatmanastu shatrutve varte tatmaiva shatruvat. Arjuna, understand this control of the mind is so central to this process of yoga. It is so central that understand that all your spiritual practices are finally coming down to this control of the mind. And this is so central that please understand, as soon as the mind is fully controlled, self-realization, God realization already achieved. Self-realization, God realization are achieved as soon as the mind is fully controlled. In fact, the mind is the best friend of he who controls it. And at the same time, the mind is the worst enemy of he who fails to control it. And if one controls the mind, and this he explains actually in the next verse, if you control the mind, then the super soul is already reached. And there are different processes to control the mind. And in this particular chapter, because the focus is Dhyana Yoga, Krishna actually explains the mechanical process of mind control. But Krishna's recommendation at the end of the day is not the mechanical process, it's the natural process of mind control. And we'll come to that shortly. So Krishna says, The mind can be your friend, the mind can be your enemy. When is the mind a friend? When it is controlled. When is the mind your enemy? When the mind is unrestrained. Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manapamanayoho. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul, the Paramatma is already reached. He has achieved perfect tranquility. And such a person, like what I've been describing all this while, Arjun, is a person who is perfectly Samadarshi. He's equal in all material dual situations: honor, dishonor, happiness, distress, heat, cold. Why? Because he's detached from matter altogether. He's not interested. Yes, correct. If you are a pure vegetarian, somebody asks you, will you eat chicken or mutton? What is your preference? You'll say it doesn't make any difference to me because I eat neither. Because you are detached from both. Yeah, correct. You understand? Because you're not interested in that menu at all. You're neither trying to find happiness in material things, nor are you running away from material things. You are busy enjoying a spiritual pleasure inside. Something wonderful happens from material perspective. You're also okay, good. Right? Happened, it's okay. It didn't happen, it's okay. Doesn't matter, it's okay. Because you anyway know that anyway if something wonderful happens, how much pleasure will it give? And even if it comes, it is going to go. Nateshu ramate buddha. So they are very naturally detached. That is one of the tests of a spiritually advanced person. They don't get too excited on material achievement. They don't jump, yeah, yes, I made it. I've become rich. I've made it. I have got this. Excited. Because they know that whoever becomes excited becomes equally depressed when the other side of the situation comes, and the other side will come. Will come for sure. If not immediately, definitely at the time of death. For the time of death, everything is taken away. Yes. Okay. So reflect on this. These are very deep spiritual points to ponder. He who understands this naturally becomes detached. Now, again, another interesting point I want to focus on, which is why the control of the mind is linked to spiritual realization. Or why Krishna is saying for one who has conquered his mind, the super soul or the Paramatma is already realized. Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Huh? Yeah. So again and again, Krishna is saying, ultimately measure your spiritual advancement by how well you are controlling your mind. Not just based on how many rituals you did, yajnas you did, pujas you did. All those are ultimately meant to purify and control the mind. But the measurement should be how tranquil, how peaceful, how purified your mind has become. Why? Because for the soul, the mind is like a mirror. Cheto darpana. The chitta, the mind, is darpan. Darpan means mirror. How does the soul see itself? Can you see yourself when you get up? If you want to see yourself, can you see your own face? Sometimes our spouse, when she looks at her face, as soon as we wake up, she says, "Oh, your face is looking so scary. Her hair is all scattered. Her eyes are reddish." But then we cannot see our own face. Then what we have to do? We have to go and look in the mirror. Oh, yes, let me freshen up, then I'll look better. So even to see ourselves, we need a mirror. So the soul reflects its own consciousness in the mind. For the soul, the mind is like a mirror. Do you get the understanding? Yeah, for the soul, the mind is the mirror. And that mind, which is distracted by material things, is like a mind, is like a mirror which is full of dust. If a mirror is full of dust and you try to look at your own image, you cannot see it properly. You need to clean it. as soon as the mirror becomes clean, the true nature, the reflection becomes proper. The true nature of the soul is reflected in the mirror of the purified mind. The Paramatma as well as the Atma are perceived in a purified mind. Reflect on this. This is also a very important point. Why we cannot? Actually, the Paramatma is in the heart, and the Paramatma is continuously talking to us. Do you know? The Paramatma, Krishna within the heart in the form of Paramatma, is actually continuously talking to us and guiding us. Do like this, don't do like this. But 99.99% of the time we cannot hear him. Why? Because there's so much noise in our heart that the sound of Krishna, Paramatma, drowns within the noise of our material desires. But when all these material desires subside, Krishna's dictation, his sound becomes very clear. Ah, now I can hear what Krishna is telling me. So for those who are advanced souls, they are continuously receiving dictation from Krishna. In fact, Srila Prabhupada would say that when I'm writing my Bhakti Vedanta purports, Krishna dictates to me and I simply write. It's not written by me. Krishna dictates and I write. So Prabhupada would enjoy reading his own book sometimes and he would ask his disciples to read the translation. And say, oh, so wonderful, such a wonderful point. And the disciples would have, Prabhupada, you only wrote this. Why you are saying such a wonderful, as if he is hearing it for the first time. Such a wonderful point. Oh, very nice. Then when the disciples would ask him, he would say, no, 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 I have not written this. Krishna has dictated. I have just written. So nice to hear what Krishna has dictated. So pure souls, advanced souls can hear Paramatma's voice very clearly. The more we become advanced, we will also be able to hear. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Cheto Darpanamarjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shriyo Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandambudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. That simply by Shri Krishna Sankirtan, the mirror of the heart, which is full of dust, will get clean. Snapanam. Snapanam means thoroughly bathed, cleaned. And one can see one's pure self and also the Paramatma very clearly within the heart. That is what yoga is about. And that is where one can actually connect properly to the Supreme Lord. ज्ञान विज्ञान तृप्तात्मा कुटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इति उच्यते योगी समलोष्ट्राश्म कांचन. Now Krishna is going to is further continuing to describe that advanced yogi who is able to see that Paramatma in the heart and who has achieved a spiritual realization. He says a person who is established in self-realization, such a yogi, and he is a true yogi because he has achieved the perfection of yoga. He's so satisfied by virtue of his realization and his connection with the Lord that such a person always remains on the spiritual platform. His senses are automatically controlled because he's no longer interested in employing his senses for materialistic pursuits. And that is why he sees all material varieties with equal vision because he's equally detached. He knows none of these things actually matter ultimately from a spiritual perspective. For him, pebbles, gold, stones, sama, lostra, ashma, kanchana. Lostra means pebbles. Ashma means stone. Kanchana means gold. This is equal. Doesn't mean that he has become stupid. He doesn't know that this is gold. Not in that sense. But in the sense that he's not too excited whether this is gold or so, because at the end he knows even if it is gold, doesn't mean that it is going to give me lasting happiness. And he simply is continually engaging his senses in the service of Krishna. And that's how he experiences that spiritual pleasure. That's how that realization is manifest. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriyahi sevonmukhe hi jivvadau swayam eva svaratyadaha. This realization of Krishna, Krishna's name, form, pastimes, quality doesn't come simply by theoretical knowledge. It comes when one continually engages one's senses in Krishna's service through the process of repeatedly chanting his names, hearing his glories, and so on, so forth. Sevon mukhehi jivadau. And that is the process of Krishna consciousness. But Arjun, let me tell you that this equanimity, you may think this is far out. This equanimity towards loss and gain and all these things, towards gold and stone, you may think this is fantastic. But let me tell you, Arjun, there is one more state above this. This is one level of detachment and equanimity. But those who are even more spiritually advanced, they not only achieve this, but they come to such a level that they see even all kinds of living entities equally. Those who glorify them and those who criticize them, they see them also equally. Those who are affectionate to them, those who are neutral, those who are envious, those who are even their enemies, they see them with equal vision. Sadhushu apicha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. So it is one thing to look at matter equally. It is even harder, correct? Somebody is very nice to you. Somebody is always criticizing you. How many of us can be very neutral or totally unaffected by people who are always critical of us or envious of us? It is not as difficult to be equally disposed towards matter. But when people are behaving with us in different ways, sometimes inimically or in an envious manner, to remain and maintain an equal vision, even for such living entities, to consider both the pious as well as the sinners with an equal mind, such a person is considered even higher. So I'm going to stop here. We have completed 6.9. So I think 6.10 onwards, Krishna starts explaining the process of Ashtanga Yoga, where Krishna now explains that Arjun, I have been explaining to you about controlling the mind. Mind is the center. Mind is most important. Detachment from matter, attachment to Krishna. Now I will explain this whole process, how it can be done via a mechanical process. I'll explain the mechanical process to you. Okay. Just to give you a perspective, you have a few minutes. There are two processes. There is a mechanical process and there is a natural, non-mechanical process to control the mind. Mechanical process means a thorough systematic approach to bring the mind under control. And what is the natural process? The natural process means that the mind can simply be controlled by getting it attracted to the right things. When the mind is attracted to the right things. Here, when we talk about right, we are talking about when the mind gets attracted to spiritual things. Then detachment is a natural consequence. Okay. So I'm going to pause here and take any questions. Sorry if the topic was very technical. I hope whatever I spoke made some sense. So in the chat, I see a question by Gangotri Mataji says, if we consider everybody equal, why we are told that, those are materialistic, we should not associate with them. Yeah. So if you remember what we discussed in this chapter is that those who are fully advanced, very, very advanced, realized souls, they do not even distinguish between a sinner and a pious person. But when you are not at that platform, you don't act like that. When you are at a lower platform, you still have to use your discrimination in terms of what are those things which are favorable for association and what are those things which are unfavorable. So that high state, the Avadhuta stage, the Paramahamsa stage, person reaches such a spiritual consciousness that he can actually remain unaffected in all situations. So this is not a state to be imitated. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the forest of Jharkhand, he was in such love of God, he was in such ecstasy of love of Krishna, chanting the names, that as he was walking through the forest of Jharkhand in Bihar area, even wild animals were near him, but he saw the wild animals as well as the deer and the tigers, everything equally. And he had such love and he had such purity that by his influence, when the tigers came near him, rather than being scared of the tiger, he would gently slap the tiger and say, chant Krishna's name. One slap. And by the contact of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the tiger would start jumping and dancing in love of God. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can do that because he is, of course, he's Krishna himself, but in that role, he's playing the role of a pure devotee. Yes, but please do not try this if you come across a tiger. Don't say, I will gently slap him like what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. Okay? So that will be the last thing you see in your life. So we have to act. Again, Krishna says, act your level. Yes, intellectually we know the soul of the tiger and our soul, the tree, the deer is the same, but at our level we have to discriminate. So we cannot act on that level. So at a level where we are not totally purified, we have to use sad, asad, viveka buddhi. What is conducive to spiritual advancement, what is not conducive to spiritual advancement. That discrimination we have to have. When a person develops full spiritual consciousness, he sees everything as sad. He sees everything in connection to Krishna. For him, it is not sad and asad. He sees everything in connection with Krishna. That's why he's never deluded. For us, because we are at a lower level of consciousness, we see things connected to Krishna and detached from Krishna. So we go in the direction of things detached from Krishna, we go down. But the vision of a pure soul is different. Yeah, I hope you're able to understand this point. Yeah. Okay, I hope I have answered your question, Gangotri Mataji.
Oh, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, that the example you are given, can it be associated as an Uttama Adhikari?
Yes, Uttama Adhikari.
Okay, thanks, Prabhu.
Yeah. So fully self-realized soul has that kind of so, see, that is why we need expert guidance. We cannot apply verses which are referring to a much higher stage and artificially imagine ourselves to be there or try to behave like that. That is why we need guidance across our spiritual journey. So we have to follow our dharma at our level. Yes, from a general perspective, yes, this is what we are actually working towards ultimately. But we cannot act like that when we are not there. Yes. We can only lift our weight. Yes. When we are in the featherweight category, we cannot, fight with the super heavyweight category. Otherwise, we will have a knockout in the first punch. Okay, anything else? Was it too heavy? Very difficult to understand? I can understand. Okay, I'm assuming silence means you are fully absorbed divine consciousness. Good. Okay, so anyway, reflect on this. Actually, these points are not easy to understand. You have to read it 100 times, practice them 1000 times, then slowly we will be able to understand. With the blessings of the Lord, with the blessings of the devotees of the Lord, these subjects will slowly be understood. But at least the key points we must be clear: detachment from matter, attachment to Krishna, and ultimately we achieve that state through the following of the process of sadhana bhakti, beginning by chanting of the holy names, hearing Gita Bhagavad, rendering service to the Lord, worshipping to the Lord. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyati satyam te tijane yoshi. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.